You're watching Past the Wire TV. Tracking trips from Past the Wire and the Pick Six King, John Stetton. As your handicapping partner, John is your second set of eyes on the past performances, replays, numbers, trips, and more, helping you find the angles and plays others miss. Each week you get expert analysis, smarter ways to press your opinions, and the keys to cashing bigger tickets. Tracking trips from Past the Wire. Give yourself an edge and partner with a pro. Get a second set of trained, experienced eyes. Join today. Membership has its benefits.
Hey, what do you say to everybody? Mr. Sette with Past the Wire TV. Sunday, the Jockey Club Gold Cup. About a 10-minute review here. I want to break down each one of the horses for you and talk a little about the history. You know, being a New Yorker, many years growing up in Brooklyn, on Jockey Club Gold Cup Day, I steamed over to Belmont. And I've seen so many of the greats. This race goes back, I believe, let me check it out. I had the screen up. Yeah, 1919. That's how many years it's been running. So there's a significant history to this, what I feel is a great race every year. It lost a little bit of its luster over the years. And, you know, perhaps when Belmont's done with their renovation, we'll be back at Belmont. It's only been at Saratoga for a few years. You know, one of the things I wanted to emphasize, you know, when you're getting horses like this that have gone through their juvenile and, you know, 3-year-old campaign and they're back as 4-year-olds, you do have a good story or a good body of work on many of the horses. You know, in this case, in this race, they're basically all 4-year-olds. Bright Future is a 5-year-old, but has less races than a lot of them in the race. You know, some are lightly raced. But with that said, I wanted to share a couple of things from a historical matter. You know, I mean, legends. I put some down and I have a couple of screens up. I mean, Curlin, John Henry, Affirmed, Easy Goer, Cigar, Man of War, you know, Kelso, Sword Dancer. You can go on and on. So many of the greats raced in this race at Big Sandy. And one of the things I wanted to emphasize, okay, because one of the entries, one of the horses entered, Bright Future, who won this race last year. We're going to get into that. This race has actually had back-to-back winners several times. And, you know, over recent history, some not too long ago. For example, Flat Out, 2011 and 2012. Tonalist, 2014 and 2015, for Christophe Clement. Who else repeated? I was checking things out. So, there was, Curling, of course, 2007, 2008. So, you know, Skip Away repeated. So there's been numerous horses that were successful in this race and then came on to repeat the following year. This is how I see the race being run, you know, and, you know, nice card on Sunday. I think Saturdays as a whole was better. And generally speaking, I didn't want this race to get by me without playing it. So let's start off with Tapit Trice. Now, Tapit Trice, when I was at the Haskell, covering Haskell Day for Past the Wire, Tapit Trice, of course, was in the Monmouth Cup on the undercard. And, I mean, I was as up close and as personal to the horse as you can imagine. I was in the paddock, you know, 2-3 feet away. I took some cool video of the horse, and I bet him that day and bet him pretty strong. And I had him not only in the race individually, but I had the double, which it made a very profitable day for me, even though I didn't do well at Haskell this year, a race I always count on. But Tapit Trice in that particular race, and by the way, I literally called people that night. Even my colleagues, I told them, John and Jim, I said, you know what? He looked really, really sharp. And when you look at the race in race review, being that it was his first race as a 4-year-old, he was forward too, so he showed some early ability. If you remember Tapit Trice of 2023, he would basically sit further back and have a lot more to do. But one thing I wanted to say, when I was in the paddock that day, he just looked extremely fit. And the way he won the race that day, I kind of knew it in the paddock that he was going to go out on the track and run a big race. And sometimes that's what happens. Visually, you're impressed. So Tapit Trice is the one horse. I ran up for Pletcher. Again, second race as a 4-year-old. He ran a big number that day. I think he had a lot more left in him. That day was 1 1/8 miles. Now he's got to go 1 1/4 miles. Of course, he's a Tapit. It's a big, strong gray. Obviously, no reservations about the distance. I look at him as a major contender in this race. I'll get into my final order when I'm done sharing some thoughts on each one of the starters. All right? The 2, Cucha, I'll be light on him. Sayas up for Rudy Rodriguez. Nice 5-year-old, son of Uncle Mo. However, even though he's got a good line of races, hits the board often, he's just a tad, a cut below, not even a tad below, a cut below these. Be a big surprise. I can't use him on any tickets. The 3, Bright Future. Now, many of you know, if you follow me here on Past the Wire, in the Whitney, I really backed him, as well as many handicappers in the industry, for good reason. He was making his second start as a 5-year-old. He came back and ran that nice race at Monmouth, where I was there that day live. What was it? The Salvador Mile. He looked like a beaten horse at short odds, but he came on the rail and he made a big run, and he had a lot more left after that race. So the expectations, the fact that he won at Saratoga already, he was making his second start off that layoff, just looked like he was primed for a big race. And what happened was Saratoga came up muddy that day. It was harrowed, sealed, harrowed again. Horse never been in the mud before, and that can happen. It can happen to any horse at any time when they're, facing a circumstance they've never faced before, especially when it comes to a track condition. But no reservations whatsoever, because another reason why Bright Future was on many tickets and the top of my ticket then is because he was proven over the track at Saratoga, proven at the distance, and look no further. Now coming into this race, he won last year's Jockey Club Gold Cup. In an ace-horse field, he ran down Proxy, who has many good races under his belt as well. So by default, I see Bright Future as a contender in this race. You get a big Sharpie magic marker and you put a line through last race. It made no sense. He finished, what's the actual number? He finished 22 lengths behind Arthur's Right. I'd be willing to wager my entire baseball card collection and with another, basically my bank account, that he won't lose to Arthur's Ride by 22 lengths, unless, of course, he broke out of the gate and, stumbled or had something crazy. So, obviously, Arthur's Ride is not 22 lengths better than Bright Future. I'm sure Todd Pletcher is making amends now. Blink has come on. Castellano's back up. You know, I mentioned the other horses who repeated. Bright Future's a contender in this race to repeat. I don't land him as my top choice, but being that he won last year, being that way, and by the way, if it comes up muddy again, we don't know. That's a game time decision. But if it came up muddy again, which I don't think that we're looking at that scenario, but if it did, he probably would still improve on that. Because, like I said, it was different circumstances that day. He looked very lethargic, didn't take to that sealed, harrowed track at all. You know, horses are animals, and we don't know what's going to happen on any given race day. But I list the 3, Bright Future, as a contender in this race. The 4 is Disarmed. I don't know if there's many handicappers that know more about Disarm than I do. I have backed him several times. He was my horse in the Kentucky Derby as a 3-year-old. I still am hurting from that race because I felt like he had enough run and he was blocked by Kingsbarn that day, and he could have been a Kentucky Derby champion, finished 4th, came back and won the Matt Win. Then he raced well, but faltered in the Jim Dandy. And he was 2nd running big in the Travers, all as a 3-year-old. And those were his 4 best races. So, going into this year, I felt like he would show his class and get a win under his belt, discounting the optional claim of which he won. It was a 4-horse field. They put him on the lead. That was like a workout. He was 1 to 9 that day. But the last 2 have been disappointing. And even though he did show some run, and I thought the wet would be okay with him, he was a beaten 4th to Arthur's Ride, Croupi, and Post Time, and in the Whitney. I still think he didn't offer his best that day. So Rosario's back up for Asmussen. Of course, this son of Gun Runner at any time could run as big as he has before, so the ability is there. The ability is there. So I have to list him as a contender in this race, because if he runs his best, especially if others do not or falter for any reason, he's a contender. And the 1.25 miles suits him because it is a son of Gun Runner. He's proven at the distance, and he's shown some significant ability to have a lot left post the 8th pole in a 1.25 mile race. The 5 is Pyrenees. Pyrenees, of course, for Sherry DeVoe, always trust B.J. Hernandez. This horse is like the wild card in the race because the colt's done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong whatsoever. Obviously, from a class perspective, a cut below, maybe even a tad below, has won the Grade 3 Pimlico Special, beating Kingsbarn, who came back and won a big race himself. Then the Stephen Forster, Kingsbarn turned the tables on him. I didn't see that coming, but this horse was still right there. That's a Grade 1 race. Hasn't been out since June 29th. Works look good, steady. I think this horse is reliable. I also list him as a contender in this race, proven at the distance. Because that race, the Pimlico Special, was big. I look at the Pimlico Special as not a Grade 3, but a lower end Grade 2, but it is a Grade 3. But if you look at this, Pyrenees' body of work, I mean, you can't complain about much. You would expect a horse like this to go forward another time. And if Pyrenees can get that forward race, run a bar that's probably in the low 100s out of the high 90s, no reason why that horse can't contend in this race. The 6 is Highland Falls. Now, Brad Cox, greatly respected as a trainer, of course, son of Curlin, who won this race back-to-back years, was also Horse of the Year those years. His claim to fame is running a real big race in the Oaklawn Handicap, second to Skippy Longstocking. Oh, by the way, Skippy Longstocking came back recently again and won another race at 9 furlongs. That would be like 5 races he's won now at 9 furlongs. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. So Highland Falls, Tapit Trice really beat that horse easily at Monmouth. It could have been the circumstances of Monmouth. The horse did run second. To me, had a good trip. No excuse. Tapit Trice was just better. You would believe the fact that this horse has been around 8 races, 7 out of 8 in the money. Very hard to dismiss or disregard Brave Cox. And Pratt is new on him. Cox is making a move to Flavien Prat. So another horse that you can make an argument for, to a certain degree, not as classy as some of the others, but I'll tell you where I have him in my final precise. And of course, the 7 horse, the bottom horse, there's a horse a lot of people were talking about, Arthur's Ride. Morning line is very aggressive. I'm looking at the morning lines here, 4-5. Alvarado Vermont, his last 2, what can you say? The optional claimer race, a 111 Byers, blew everybody away and looked very comfortable doing it. And then the Whitney was a big surprise to me. But I believe the Whitney, as dynamic as he looked, because he had another gear. When you go a mile and an eighth, and remember, sealed track, harrowed, only one who got out. I think those were to his advantage. But 9 furlongs to look like he had a lot of energy, good energy in a stretch, that could be scary. But in this spot, and he's won in a mile and a quarter before, all right? So he's got the mile and a quarter race. He's won it, but that was against, optional claiming horses, but it was at Saratoga. So now he's got 2 wins consecutively at Saratoga for big numbers. You know what? Everything may not be his way. I think there are some classy individuals in this race, and obviously he drew well from the 7 hole. It's obvious that he's going to be forward. I think Pyrenees is going to be forward early to a certain degree to keep him honest. Sayaz, the only way Sayaz with the 2 for Rudy Rodriguez could compete in this race is to be early. So at the end of the day, you got a bunch of contending horses. And I'll tell you the truth, it wasn't an easy race to be 100% decisive. So I'm going to offer the fact that because Tapit Trice just looked so visually impressive in the paddock that day, and then what I saw him do over the track at Monmouth, he could just be at a different level now as a 4-year-old. So, even though I could make an argument for others, I'm putting Tapit Trice on top to win this Jockey Club Gold Cup. However, in my multiples, I'm going to use 3 horses. I'm going to use Bright Future because Bright Future has the capacity to repeat, and I shared all reasons for that. I think he's a lot better than he showed last time, and I think he'll show everybody else over the track this time. And, Blinkers is a good move for this particular race. I don't always agree with it, but this guy is going to respond to and improve off his last, because he's done so at Saratoga before, and he's last year's winner. Pyrenees, who I have respect, hits the board for me. And then, so what I'm going to do in this race, I'm going to use those 3 in my multiples. There's only one horse in this race you could completely dismiss in winning, and that's the 2. Has nothing to do with the morning line. So if I had to give a precise order, which I like to do, it would be 1 Tapit Trice, 3 Bright Future, 5 Pyrenees, 4 Disarmed, 7 Arthur's Ride, and 6 Highland Falls. But you know something? I wouldn't be shocked if any one of those horses won this race. But we as handicappers, we want to be decisive. Is this going to be a race I'm going to put a big win bet? Absolutely not. Because I know there are different circumstances that can unfold. But if I had to lean on one, it's going to be Tapit Trice, because for all the reasons I mentioned, I just think his second race as a 4-year-old, if it's better than his first race as a 4-year-old, and the condition, the shape that I saw he was in, he's probably going to outfinish these. All right? That's it. Let's go get him. I got to get on with my day. I'll see you on the next show, and God bless you. God bless your families. Focus to the finish.
Nobody does it better.